egregious power vacuum and leading up to chaos that is ongoing in Afghanistan, unfortunately. So, at this stage, they have claimed the attacks in Kabul airport, and the couple that are in the city as well. But it's interesting to see whether or not this will stimulate resurgence of the original ISIS caliphate members in Syria and Iraq or other areas. As I said before, it's already been celebrated by other terrorist groups like Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, that when the Taliban took Kabul. So now we're going to have to see how they respond to this ISIL terrorist attacks. It is significant in that regard. And then again, I want to emphatically underline that the Taliban are scrambling as much as we are in terms of the allies or the international community. And state actors there, whilst Taliban could be considered a non-state actor. Because they don't know. They were surprised, I think, as so many of us. And I think that's evident from the fact how little their communication has been, how sporadic it has been. They've produced one statement. We've not seen any images on social media. We've not seen any sort of, big activity, which the Taliban like to do, because they want to show that they're, back and legitimate and a big, strong body. And the fact that they're being quite muted about this, I think, is either they're internally discussing it with the United States as to how to deal with this, and also because they're as out of shock as we are, and their power structure hasn't made way for this. The head of the Hakka movement, which is their militant group, versus their political arm in Qatar, are likely to be trying to facilitate some kind of coordination and meetings. But a lot of that information we're not going to have access to because it's from the Taliban. I don't know, Sam, if you have anything else you'd like to add to that.
Sorry, thank you very much. I just wanted to say a few things about this. In my perspective, and so far as I know, the Taliban and ISIS, they are sister organizations. Taliban has an aspiration to have an Islamic government in the region that they are, whereas ISIS has an aspiration to have an Islamic government in the rest of the world. They want to have a caliphate. Now, so far as the title of the room is concerned, I am from Afghanistan. I have lived there for a good part of, during the Karzai period, I was working with the government. And my understanding, even at that time, is that the government of Afghanistan kept opposing the Americans to go behind the backs of the government to negotiate with the Taliban. They wanted to represent the negotiation. And I believe the biggest blunder that happened is the fact that the Americans negotiated with the Taliban without having the Afghan government at the forefront. So it went behind the backs of the Afghan government, and the negotiation was done, even though the Afghan government time and time again kept insisting that their role as the representatives of the people of Afghanistan has to be respected. This did not happen. What actually happened in the beginning in 2001, when the Twin Towers were attacked, the Americans asked the Taliban to hand over Osama bin Laden. The Taliban did not say that they will not prosecute the one who actually committed those attacks. They said, we will not allow anybody to use the land of Afghanistan to attack. And if Osama bin Laden did that, we need you to provide us evidence so we can prosecute him ourselves. We will not hand him over to you. Okay, but the main point the Taliban suggested at that time was that they will not allow any other group use the Afghanistan, the land of Afghanistan, to attack any other country. And during the negotiations that happened, the same thing was reached. The American team and the Taliban reached the same thing, that Afghanistan will not be used by a terrorist organization to attack the interests of the United States. This thing was already communicated by the Taliban in 2001. Osama bin Laden was captured in Pakistan, not in Afghanistan. So that claim that we captured Osama bin Laden and we are successful as a result of our operation in Afghanistan is kind of misleading. Okay, so The Americans fought in Afghanistan for 20 years and replaced Taliban with the Taliban, and the negotiation was the same thing that happened in 2001. All these lives lost, all this money wasted, the lives of Afghans and also the lives of the American soldiers and their NATO coalition partners. And all those other civilian people who actually went and helped Afghanistan. I worked in the capacity development area with the civil services in Afghanistan. I know some really genuine international staff that actually cared about the cause of Afghanistan. They wanted to actually help the country. All their sacrifices, their lives, their efforts, everything just got lost because the Americans negotiated with the Taliban to replace the Taliban with the same terms that the Taliban reached in 2001. Somebody has to answer. Thank you. Everything just got lost because the Americans negotiated with the Taliban to replace the Taliban with the Taliban.
Sorry, was there a question in there, or that was just comments you wanted to make?
No, it was just my comment. I wanted to talk about that.
Thank you. So we're going to go back to PTR order. I think it's Dinyanesh.
Hi, thank you so much. My condolences to the people of Afghanistan and anyone in the room who has been affected by what's happened in Kabul today. In terms of what's happened in Kabul, I think the Pentagon is, for a change, is right in its statement that is released, where it said that they kind of saw this coming. They were anticipating this. Because as you will recall, the Taliban, when they rolled into Kabul on the 15th of August, I think a day before or maybe on the day of, they released 5,000 prisoners from the Pulicharhi prison, which is on the outskirts of Kabul, whose inmates were predominantly Al-Qaeda and Islamic State prisoners, the Daesh Khorasan prisoners. And while they were doing that, they executed Abu Omar Khorasani, who is the former leader of Islamic State Khorasan. He's also known as Maulia Ziaul Haq. There are also reports that Islamic State was trying to recruit Taliban, and so the two groups have viewed each other as a threat. But I think, I think that, yes, the Taliban have said, for example, mostly people from the political commission, Mullah Baradar, Zabiullah Mujahid, Shaheen, and Stanikzai, the spokesperson, who are all from the political side, political commission, have said that they will not let Afghanistan be used for any other country, to be used as a territory by terrorists to mount attack against any other country. But I think that kind of obfuscates the fact that what are they going to do with the approximately 10,000 terrorists or jihadists on their soil. And I think the plan then was to kind of use these foreign jihadists, or even, there are reports coming that a lot of the Daesh Khorasan individuals are Afghans themselves, but to use them as bargaining chips against the neighboring countries, so China, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. There were reports that, for example, the borders with Tajikistan and Uzbekistan would be manned by members of the Taliban, but who were former nationals of Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, so to kind of use these as bargaining chips. So I think that this ought to be a wake-up call for a lot of the states, the neighboring states that were willing to cut deals with the Taliban, to say that, we will supply you with the money, we will give you investment, so that so long as you keep our troublemakers away from us. So Iran did that, right? So there are reports coming out that Iran has already begun actually supplying fuel to the Taliban in return for dollars, which Iran is in short supply of, because they are under sanctions, and Taliban make a certain amount of money from heroin smuggling and so on and so forth. Now, I write on the geopolitics of the Middle East and South Asia, and today, before this attack, I wrote an article on how the Taliban is awash in about $250 million worth of American military equipment, which includes weapons, ammunition, drones, planes, etc. So you'll have seen videos of the Taliban, posing in front of a A-29. I think it's a Brazilian aircraft, as well as Black Hawk helicopters, etc., which explains why the Taliban have, asked Afghan pilots in particular to stay on in the country, because they don't at the moment have the technical know-how how to operate these planes. Um, but I think that the rivalry between Islamic State and Taliban was anticipated for a long time. I think one also has to look at and I don't want to really sort of make this into a good Taliban versus bad Taliban argument, because to a certain extent it benefits Taliban in general. But it has to be said that the Sirajuddin Haqqani and Mullah Yaqub factions of the Taliban were far less interested, honestly, in getting any sort of international recognition, or behaving like a normal state. And so one has to point fingers at them and ask if they were in cahoots with the Islamic State, because unlike, let's say, other militant groups, a lot of the people who belong to, let's say, Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed, and there were Indian reports saying that Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed individuals were spotted in Kabul, just roaming around. So unlike